Why, hola, mujeres y gentes, niños y niñas, niños de todos años. Me llamo DB333. Y bienvenido Hearts of Iron 4, So Far From God. That's the extent of my... I know a bit more than that, but that's the most I'm comfortable even trying, and I think I fucked up the intro even there. Welcome to the new TNO update, boys. It's here, and it is beautiful. It might be beautiful. I haven't played it yet, but it looks pretty cool right now. This is the brand new update, TNO 1.6.0, So Far From God. Poor Mexico, so far from God, so close to the United States. How much and how little has changed for Mexicans since President Porfirio Diaz uttered those words. A mere 3 years later, his 35-year-long regime would be swept away by revolution. The revolution's promises for democratization, sovereignty, and, for many, equality and social justice were battered by waves of civil war, assassinations, and repression. Heroes and villains rose and fell as millions of Mexicans died. To knit the chaotic and frustrated nation together once more, President Calles united its revolutionary generals, turned warlords into a single party. To stabilize the country and evade Calles' total control, his leftist successor, Cardenas, added a corporatist system of workers, peasants, and the incipient middle classes to this inheritance. And from this monstrous union was birthed the Leviathan of the institutional Revolutionary Party. This party, the PRI, has governed the United Mexican States ever since, its tentacles burrowing even deeper into national life. Each limb extends a bargain. Development after years of hunger, security after decades of violence, the return of welfare and land stripped away in the Porfiriato. All that is asked in return are votes. Votes and acquiescence. Acquiescence as American and Japanese capital reclaims their influence, as the revolutionary promises of the Constitution of 1917 are ignored, as an elite caste seizes the fruits of development for itself, as the elections by which the Leviathan sustained itself are rigged, as those who protest are beaten or disappear. Locked in the PRI's Faustian pact, Mexico is truly so far from God. We've been tolerant to a fault, even of criticized excesses, but everything has its limits. It is the characteristics of dictatorship, the permanence not of a man but of a party, and of a party that is unbreakable. We have the experience of sacrifice, not that of disgrace. We have known of misfortune, not abdication. Well, there we go. Gonna hop in. Oh, it already starts us off with who we want. Look at that. The United Mexican States stands at a precipice after the revolutionary turbulence which characterized the start of the Mexican 20th century. The country enjoys a relatively high degree of stability and economic growth. Mexico enjoys cordial relations both via oath and spear, and is a growing hub of international commerce. However, this stability may prove to be short-lived, as the nation faces increasing tensions both within and without. Mexico's firm commitment to neutrality is being shaken by increasing pressure from both sides of the Pacific. The institutional Revolutionary Party's long grip on power is threatened by internal factionalism and growing disaffection caused by the widening divisions emerging in Mexican society. President Adolfo López Mateos has proven himself a shrewd politician and diplomat, and has been able to maintain the balance thus far. However, his term is soon to end, and it remains to be seen if his successor can guide the nation through its tumultuous era. We said if there's no content from the 1968 Olympics, the Tlatelolco massacre, because that would be interesting to deal with internally. Let's see. When does that massacre happen? Because I think we get the last 3 years of Mateo's content and the first year of whichever successor we go with, that content. I've seen the given the Mexican president having to argue with Nixon during the not Cuban Missile Crisis. Right. Very true. Let's go and select the country, and here we are. The United Mexican States. We're just going to hop in. I don't see any reason to mess around with anything. Let's just see how things go. Okay, so we start in 62. So I think we're only getting content into 1966. If I'm doing my math correctly. So I don't think we will get that, unfortunately. Go ahead and start. That kind of sucks. Yeah, it's a pretty small content update from what I can tell. At least, like, time-wise. But, I mean, I've actually enjoyed these smaller updates for the most part. I enjoy the new British content a lot. The little Ukrainian content that was, at least for, like, the one path I did, but that was pretty solid. I'd appreciate if the TNO devs did more of these in a quicker amount of time. I know, like, it's not realistic to ask them to do that. Just because, you know, it's a volunteer team. They're not paid for this shit. But more updates of this size more frequently, I think, would take the edge off the small size of them. But outside of the frequency aside, I've been enjoying these smaller updates. So, yeah. I'm not enjoying these loading times, though, let me tell you. Some things never change. Well, there we are. The Eternal Revolution. The presidency of Lázaro Cárdenas was a new beginning for the languishing Mexican Revolution. The collectivization of farmland into ejidos has brought significant change to the countryside. Landmark efforts to educate the country had begun, and the popular movement itself was incorporated into a united corporatist revolution, Partido de la Revolución Mexicana. Under its firm hand, Mexico was at last moving towards socialism. The biggest event of Cárdenas' sexennial was the 1938 nationalization of oil. At a stroke, Mexico reclaimed its sovereign rights to its greatest resource. However, this caused tremendous outrage, mostly with the oil companies in the United States. Faced with attention from the oil expropriation, the next president, Manuel Avila Camacho, would adopt a more moderate approach. He ended the thorny issue of the church and rolled back many of the outright socialist policies like socialist education. This did not seem to placate the new American government, however, which led to a personal rift that kept Mexico from fully committing to Western allies. Mexico would never join the war, and often resisted pressure from the United States to fully eliminate Falangist and fascist groups. The war did, however, affect Mexico. The higher commodity prices and lack of European exports convinced the PRM the way to a brighter future lay in industrialization and opening up to the global markets. And the new tensions with the United States convinced them a new ally was needed in the hemisphere. President Miguel Alemán was responsible for the massive post-war shift in the revolution. A new opening to the Japanese brought a new partner that would reduce reliance on the Americans. Foreign investors in industry and tourism would also grow the economy, leading to the Mexican miracle and rampant corruption. At home, Alemán would solidify his power through the new Dirección Federal de Seguridad, a secret police force. Perhaps his greatest accomplishment was the reformation of the PRM into the Partido Revolucionario Institucional, and the solidification of Mexico into a de facto one-party state. After a controversial election in 1952, Adolfo Ruiz Cortines would seek to restore faith in the revolution by tamping down on the excesses of Alemán. Through fighting corruption and building infrastructure, Ruiz Cortines kept the miracle going. However, it was clear more was needed. Providing a velvet glove and an iron fist, Adolfo López Mateos has overseen populist policies and violent crackdowns since 1958. He brought Mexico onto the world stage by promising it as a center of neutrality and reason. However, his vision still faced massive tests. If there is an ideology to the PRI, it is based around maintaining order through left populist handouts, state capitalist economics, and brutal repression. This is represented first and foremost by the second most powerful man in Mexico, Gustavo Díaz Ordaz, the Interior Secretary. Holding this role often means he has to manage the state apparatus to buy loyalty and snuff out dissent. An heir apparent like Ordaz needs a party structure to help him win elections with some degree of legitimacy. The man responsible for that is Alfonso Corona del Rosal, former general and head of the PRI. Longtime party functionaries like him are key to ensuring the revolution retains its course. But we also have the technocrats, as opposed to the party vanguard. The economic growth that solidified the PRI's hold on power can be traced to one man, Finance Secretary Antonio Ortiz Mena. He's been given a free hand to run the economy through export-focused state capitalism by successive governments. It works extremely well, guaranteeing stabilized development, constant growth, and little inflation. However, Mexico is still facing dire poverty and anti-growth policies. Commerce Secretary Raul Salinas Lozano, in particular, is a believer that political expediency is holding Mexico back from its full development. To him, a remake of a revolution is needed to focus on hard cash instead of empty platitudes, and foreign deals could be mutually beneficial without giving up on Mexican sovereignty. And we have the Cardenista movement. Despite the change in the revolution and the constitutional ban on re-election, Lozano Cardenas is still an extremely popular man, especially for the peasants. He is never forgotten. He stands the most prominent figure fighting against the rightward shift in the party, and many people behind him in his new manifesto calling for a return to socialism. Intellectuals and peasant groups have so far been partially satisfied with the Mexican miracle, but feel more is needed. The growing wealth disparity in the nation, constant corruption, and dire situation of the countryside have made them increase in popularity. They've already posed a challenge of a system at 52, backing the leftist opposition. A new voice of revolution could rise off their demands and struggles. So Leviathan's sword. Many democracies keep a degree of impartial law enforcement, but the security services in Mexico are another unofficial arm of the PRI. From the corrupt local police to the powerful DFS, the unofficial police state is pervasive throughout the country. These men answer only to the governor of their state, and the governors only to the president. Even society itself is not free of the corporatist PRI. Despite nominally free unions, the Confederación de Trabajadores de Mexico takes advantage of its party connections to almost monopolize organized labor. In return, it turns its membership out for the elections, which are counted, yet again, by state apparatuses beholden to the PRI. Likewise, the peasants and everyone else have similar organizations that serve to enhance the power of the party, both on the national and the state level. Well, officially, the PRI rules as a coalition of groups that are little more than appendages of a state. The only legitimate alternative party to the PRI is the Partido Acción Nacional. A party for those excluded by the PRI's corporatist model. Its belief in a democratic Mexico is unquestionable, but its meager existence is only allowed to give the Mexican government some level of legitimacy. More radical groups exist outside the bounds of legal recognition. The banned Communist Party and sort of leftist movements exist, and those of a rightist disposition look to the Unión Nacional Sinarquista. However, with them suppressed and the doors to power locked, they face a long and hard road to achieving their goals. Well, there we go. Mod info, shout out to all the people making this. I know that guy. Hi, Neil, if you're watching this. It's my buddy. Well, viva la revolución. Well, here we are, the United Mexican States. Let's see. Let's get our guys into an army. Field Marshal will go with Jose Agustin Olacha Aviles. Generals will go Jose Gomez Huerta. And I don't know where we send these guys. I don't know if it even matters. Let's do some tech stuff first real quick. We got a lot of stuff we need to improve on. Let's do admin building construction. Some of your history. If you start reading, got hit with like 5 minutes of ads. Oh shit, my bad. So from what I know of Mexican history, it's kind of similar. The PRI are the only legalized party. They're split into a couple different factions that can potentially take power Um, they're basically bribing the population with enough handouts to keep them happy, but a lot of people are unsure if it's going to happen. There's some opposition groups, the PAN, but they don't really have that much power. There's some leftists, but they're suppressed, and then the Synarchistas. Yeah, the PRI controls everything like normal, as far as I can tell. Foreign policy. Nothing in global conflicts quite yet. Let's take a look at everything we got here. First, let's read the spirits first. First, we have the imperfect dictatorship. The Janus face, Hannes, not quite sure how you say it in this context. The Janus face of the PRI is one which prefers to present an appearance of democracy and accountability over one of repression. However, as inequality and discontent grow within Mexico and the corruption of factionalism plague the party, the carrot is steadily abandoned in favor of the stick. As PRI rules dependent on the illusion of democratic structures, this situation cannot remain tenable forever. Next up, we got the Mexican Miracle. Gives us some nice boost. This gives us some okay boosts. Probably balances out. This is nice, but maintaining the miracle is expensive, and every 2 years, both minimum social spending and civilian spending factor will increase by 5%. So, got our own little specific factors built in there. Mexico's seen a decade of unparalleled economic growth, never before seen in the country's history. The population boom, the increasing important presence of the middle classes, and the exponential growth of quality of life in private and public businesses prove that the last decade's fortunes show no sign of letting up anytime soon. Moreover, the presence of foreign investors from the United States in the sphere have proven to be a great boon to our continued economic prosperity. However, we must take caution to not let this boon turn into a burden. The government must balance the interests of both foreign and local investors to ensure that this miracle doesn't falter, lest the Mexican dream be lost. Here's the PRI will just keep control of basically all of TNO since IRL they didn't collapse until 94. I'm curious about that too. I admittedly don't know enough about Mexican history to compare. I'm taking a modern Mexican history class this upcoming semester, so of course the update had to drop before that. And then I watched Kraut's videos on the history of modern Mexico. That's really all I know about it. I play a little bit of Red Dead 1, but I know that bit of Mexican history is fictionalized. Next up, we have revolutionary agriculture. It's a dogshit revolution. Jesus, look at those bonuses. The revolutionary demand for tierra y libertad, the ejido system of collective agriculture was born. Under it, federally owned land is allotted to peasant communities who work the land in common, which initially granted much greater degree of autonomy to the Mexican peasantry than ever before. However, the system was plagued by political negligence and corruption. It's far less profitable and efficient than the modern agronomic practices brought about by the Green Revolution. Next up, we have Leviathan, which also just sucks. Jesus. The vast party-state bureaucracy of Mexico has loomed over the nation for decades, where workers, peasants, and boss alike are subsumed into a vast net of patronage and administration. While the system has steadily improved the wealth of the nation and standards of living for decades, it has also created pervasive corruption in all aspects of society. Efficiency is constantly sacrificed for political expediency, compounding the financial and administrative burden on the state. And finally, we have the spirit of Bucareli. Oh, Jesus, fuck. That's not good at all. Ever since the end of the Mexican Revolution, Mexico was attempted to seem as inoffensive as possible to the rest of the world. In 1923, Mexico signed the Treaty of Bucareli with the United States, showing the nation's willingness to negotiate to great lengths before resorting to arms. This spirit carried through the Second World War as Mexico remained neutral despite mounting American pressure, and would even mediate the peace talks between Japan and the U.S. Nowadays, Mexico's Army, Navy, and Air Force have but the bare minimum in funding thanks to a policy of mostly unarmed neutrality, making them international laughingstocks. Man. We just cannot get a break, can we? Are we starting off with a focus, it looks like? Averting the crisis. Humanity's last hopes were for President Lopez Mateos. No pressure there. We can't cancel it. Humanity's fate balances a knife edge. A downed Japanese spy plane, a captured pilot, and allegations of American perfidy in the demilitarized Aleutian Islands have propelled the Pacific to the brink of war. Mexico, the lone neutral country with strong ties to both superpowers, has been called to mediate the dispute before the Cold War goes hot. Caught mid-Pacific tour in Canberra, Australia, our President Lopez Mateos will harness every organ of the Mexican state, every reserve of diplomatic goodwill, and every fiber of his being to protect his nation and the world from the outbreak of World War III. His proposal for an even-handed peace, with Mexico helming a third-party investigation of both parties' claims, can and must be accepted. We're jumping right into it. Shit. Look at that. Alright. Well, speaking of the president, Adolfo Lopez Mateos, His Excellency, the Great Human President. Now, those bonuses are nice. I can get behind those effects. Adolfo Lopez Mateos was either the child of a dentist and teacher in Mexico City or a bastard from Guatemala who faked his Mexican heritage to fulfill his political ambitions. The story's under dispute, with the latter theory having special prominence among his detractors. However, the documents he provided in the only official inquest in 1946 evidently were enough for him to be placed above suspicion. This minor speed bump did not stop his ascension from secretary to the state of Mexico's governor, to its senator and president of the PRI, the Mexican ruling party. From there, it was a mere matter of friendship and dutiful service to President Ruiz Cortines to place him as a successor, which guaranteed him an easy election, not atypical for the PRI. Lopez Mateos' term was marked by a continuation of the economic success and stability of previous presidents overall. Land reform, the building of museums, expansion of healthcare and education, and the nationalization of the electrical industry were all major successes. He also balanced Mexico's position between the spear and the OFN, which has served the nation well, and may have been the critical factor that prevented the conflict between the two superpowers. However, not all has been well. Relations with the PRI's union support base have been soured, and student groups collide with the government. Some are concerned that the PRI is blindly running away from the concerns that have been successful for Mexico. And now Adolfo Lopez Mateos must take all of this into account in order to make the most critical decision. Who will succeed him in the presidency of Mexico? That's the question. Well, I know the main guy in question is Gustavo Diaz Ordaz. The Secretary of Interior belongs to an institutional despotism, which we'll read that in a bit. We've got a lot of reading to start this off on. That's okay. Ordaz's life in the government began even before he finished his studies. As he became a judge in his 20s, his strong oratory and young talent first caught the attention of the brother of the future president, Avila Camacho. By the 50s, he was a senator. In the Senate, he found his opposite, then Senator Lopez Mateos, and ever since the two have complemented each other and braved the mess that is Mexican politics together. Lopez Mateos' constant travels around the world. Ordaz is considered by many the real force behind the presidency, with him having control over the political affairs of Mexico. But that's not all. We also have Manuel Teo Barad, the Secretary of External Relations. Since he became the senior official in the Ministry of Foreign Relations in 1943, Barad has been a fixture of the diplomatic scene. Quickly rising to undersecretary, he then became secretary during the government of Miguel Alemán and retook this post under the current president. In this important role, Barad has met with leaders from across the globe, weaving a delicate path to keep Mexico respected and independent. Though he might not keep the job for much longer, there are rumors he wishes to run for senator of Zacatecas after Lopez Mateos leaves office. Next up, we have Raul Salinas Lozano, the Secretary of Industry and Commerce. Born in 1917 in the small town of Agua Lagunas, Nuevo Leon State, Raul Salinas Lozano seems to have been born the perfect economist for Mexico. Excuse me. Oops. There we go. Not only married to another economist, Margarita de Gortiani Carvajal, Salinas boasted a long resume of positions overseeing economic progress after joining the PRI in 1940, founder of the National Institute of Public Administrations, head of the economic studies of the Ministry of Finance from 84 to 54, tax advisor to Honduras, then director of the Investment Commission of the Secretariat of the Presidency from 54 to 58, and now serving as a Secretary of Industry and Commerce for the whole nation of Mexico. It is said no man in Mexico could fill the shoes of the minister incumbent. And finally, we got Jose Agustin Olachea Aviles, the Secretary of National Defense. Olachea is an extremely accomplished man, with his military experience in the Revolution pushing him to the rank of Major General. After his time in the military, he moved into electoral politics, being governor of Baja California Sur, then Baja California, the only man to hold both these positions. After a short break, he became governor of Baja California Sur once again, before leaving to become president of the National Executive Committee of the PRI, a post he's dropped to become Secretary of National Defense. Alright, got a lot of stuff going on. Let's check all the stuff going on. We're only technically a multi-party democracy. We have none of the bonuses from it. That checks out for Mexico. Okay. Okay. Healthcare, universal coverage, so we got that going for us. Higher education going. Oppressive police. Legal equality. Strict regulations on industry. And a politicized penal system. Not the best there, but any sorted laws. We got a couple. I'll check this all real quick. Literacy is going up quite well. Nothing's really going down except for military professionalism. And I guess some admin efficiency a little bit, but everything else is looking okay. Alright, we got more shit to read before we even check out the unique mechanic. We have the Constitution 1917, the ruling legal document of the revolutionary Mexico, created by the constitutional government of Venustiano Carranza, designed to appeal to the people of Mexico through far-reaching reforms, one of the most progressive of its time, especially in its approach to agrarian issues, socialist means of production, and ownership. Also enshrines a great number of political freedoms, including freedom of speech, has been upheld and placed as the pinnacle of revolution ever since. However, successive governments have considered these articles as guidelines, not illegal binding documents. Despite plenty of lip service, many presidents change or ignore it when convenient. Then we have the Estrada Doctrine, the founding principle of Mexican foreign policy, the beliefs of Foreign Secretary Genaro Estrada Felix have been the lodestar of the nation. This doctrine has expressed a distaste for the two issues that plagued Mexico, non-recognition and intervention, supporting the sovereignty of other nations and rejecting intervention in their internal affairs, have thus far been the two main points of this philosophy. It has led Mexico to being seen as an unbiased and neutral nation in the world at large. However, recent governments have favored an interpretation that says that fascism is a fundamental threat to these principles and thus should be actively opposed. Yeah, take what you can get there. Okay, next we have a church-state separation, Article 130. This article restricts the activities of priests in Mexico, political and otherwise, deemed necessary by revolutionaries long unhappy with clerical influence. However, prior strict enforcement of this article led to large civil unrest, uprisings, and the internal condemnation, the Cristero Wars. As such, by agreement with the Church under the Cardenas and Camacho administrations, many provisions have not been enforced since 1938. They are still respected by the Church and government, despite often being brought up as a sore spot in the history of the nation. Next, we have the nationalization of oil and electricity in Article 27. This establishes the resources of a nation as the property of the nation, and not of the individual person or corporations, thus grants the state exclusive powers of monopolization. Implemented in response to foreign companies harvesting Mexican resources with impunity, it is regarded as one of the most effective legal mechanisms to assert Mexican sovereignty. Famously exercised in 1938 by President Cardenas to expropriate the oil industry, and recently modified by President Lopez Mateos to facilitate the nationalization of electricity. Guessing the regime is possible after changes in the movement. The Olympics can make it sense as content in 67 and content might cure it for possible change in government. Maybe! I'm curious to see what'll happen there. I don't that might be teased later on, but I don't think we'll get that quite yet. Next, we have the Law of Social Dissolution, Penal Article 145. Establishes social dissolution, inciting unrest as a criminal offense. Born of the fear of the rising tide of European fascism, this law has been used since 1941 to clamp down on all enemies of the public, foreign and domestic. Exceptionally broad, covering acts of speech and the works of writing of a political nature. This act has thus far been used by the PRI to clamp down on any dissent the government deems dangerous or troublesome, especially useful against the far left and far right. Finally, we have the corporatist system. The corporatist system in Mexico was established in 1937 during the presidency of General Lázaro Cárdenas del Rio, forming the PRM, Party of the Mexican Revolution, later to become the modern PRI, as a representative of the people through internal politicking between various interest groups. The corporatist mechanism divides Mexican society into three workers. 1, the workers, represented by the CTM, the Confederation of Mexican Workers. 2, the peasants, represented by the CNC, the National Peasants Confederation. And 3, the popular sector, a poorly defined concept best represented as every profession other than peasants and workers, represented by the CNOP, the Confederation of National Popular Organizations. The CNC and CNOP were formed by merging together the disunified and chaotic labor scene in post-revolution Mexico. Today, these few corporations represent every single union in Mexico. As such, the actual level of representation is very much subject to debate. They represent millions of members. Contrary to how Leviathan, the bureaucracy of these three bodies, seems, the corporatist system is a well-oiled machine. Those dual contradictory qualities make it crucial to continued rule over the United Mexican States. Well, there we go. I think we can finally check out the Leviathan. Alright, so our current crisis is the Aleutian crisis. So we have a couple different actions we have to look at. First, we have the workers. As Mexico continues to shift away from an agrarian economy to one more dependent upon manufacturing, the urban proletariat, the labor movement are becoming a larger and increasingly more important demographic. The PRI has historically enjoyed the support of the workers, and the requirements of all legal trade unions to join the PRI-affiliated Confederation of Mexican Workers has done much to ensure compliance from the reluctant, yet this control is not absolute. Events such as the 59 railroad strike have demonstrated that the Mexican workers are willing and able to paralyze much of the nation. If they feel like their rights are not being respected, and tensions are likely to grow as the urban population expands. If we're unable to command the loyalty and respect Mexico's workers and unions, we can expect mass defections from the party, and the wholesale destruction of our electoral coalition. Next up, we have the peasantry. A bit less power, it seems, but more loyal. The post-revolutionary order was formed in the name of the peasantry, who still form the bulk of the population, yet they find it slipping rapidly away from them. During the revolution, they fought to free themselves of the landowning estates and exploitation of the Porfiriato, under the cry of Tierra y Libertad. Decades later, the haciendas of the Porfiriato are slowly returning in the form of expanding agribusiness, emerging from the wake of the Green Revolution. As the conservative wing of the PRI continues its terminal decline, and the government continues to focus on Mexico's rapidly expanding industrial base, the peasantry have become steadfastly detached from Mexican politics. If we're not careful, opportunists from the church or socialist left could turn the peasants' growing unrest against the PRI, eroding our hegemony over national politics. Next, we have the DFS. The Federal Security Directorate was founded in 1947 in order to combat and contain subversive elements from spreading within Mexico. Over its years of existence, it has excelled at its primary task, quelling the fires of extremism wherever they arise. It is thus an excellent tool to the PRI's arsenal when matters need to be dealt with discreetly. This discretion, however, comes at a price. While officially subservient to the Secretary of the Interior, the DFS de facto operates with little real oversight. The Directorate is well known for its ruthless treatment of anyone it deems a threat to the internal security of the Mexican Republic, and its widespread torture at the hands of and widespread torture at the hands of DFS is an open secret. It would be unwise to believe that our government will be treated any different should it ever attract their ire. Uh-oh. Next, we have the intelligentsia. The political and intellectual class have long been associated with one another in Mexican society. It is common courtesy for political officials to be referred to as licenciado, implying university graduation. While it's certainly true that pre-officials find their seats through nepotism more often than qualification, the party's efforts towards improving education have fostered the growth of a nascent intellectual and professional class in Mexico. Few doubt that they will be key to our success in the modern era. However, while the universities have produced a generation of bright young minds, they are not all aligned to our cause. New trade unions formed to enforce the demands of the growing professional sector, and dissident tendencies are becoming worryingly prevalent on university campuses. I think that's what you were talking about, Hef. Look at that. I wonder if that's going to be a mechanic, the Tlatelolco incident. Next, we have the industrialists. Once it was thought that the revolution would do away with the dominance of private enterprise over our economy. However, capital, and particularly foreign capital, has made a grand resurgence in the wake of the Cold War. As neutral nations bordering both of the world's greatest oceans, Mexico enjoys the patronage of American companies, spear zaibatsus, and all manners of international business alongside its great state-owned concerns. While some romantics within the PRI deride the growth of international trade as a return to the Porfiriato, there's much to be gained by cultivating a healthy relationship of cooperation with our business community. They may well be the key to modernization and a thriving economy, but one must take care not to balance the interests of labor and capital, not to mention the possibility of clashing between foreign and national interests. Finally, the party bureaucracy. The men and women of the highest rank of the PRI are responsible for maintaining discipline and cohesion within an organization expected to represent multitudes of opposing interests at any time. This outward appearance of unity makes an internal reality rife with... I lost my place, damn it. Internal reality rife with factionalism, kleptocracy, and obstruction. While this has undeniably proven useful in pulling together the grand coalition of voters and interests which compose the PRI, it also greatly hampered the party's ability to move in any single direction. Corruption and nepotism are entrenched at every level of the PRI, and many party officials will fight tooth and nail against any measure which will negatively impact them, no matter what good they will do for Mexico. And yet these corrupt bureaucrats are all that prevents the PRI's delicate house of cards from collapsing. Oh, we have this to read too, shit. The heaving tentacles of the PRI-Leviathan must clasp a vast and diverse framework. Its corporatist framework encompasses workers through the CTM, peasants through the CNC, while the CNO, a hodgepodge of middle-class and elite groups, includes the economically vital industrialist intellectuals, whether world-famous authors or humble students, already governed by a different type of licenciado, the omnipresent party bureaucrats, and lurking behind all of our shadows, a secretive and brutal DFS. The more power these groups have, the more they can propel Mexico forward. But if that power exceeds the loyalty to the PRI, they will become unmanageable and cease to provide benefits. Yet there is an alternative to loyalty: corruption. Seems like the perfect mechanic for Mexico, isn't it? Groups can be subverted with bribes and blackmail, offering a form of control if one that scales down the benefits of their power. Corruption benefits, unlike power, will not be deactivated if it is above loyalty. Corruption, though, has its costs, such as increasing the price of projects. If the past is any indication, the PRI's grip on these critical constituencies will be tested in a series of crises. The Leviathan, with its great mass and infinite instruments, must maintain its former mold. Or who knows what will become of Mexico. Who knows indeed. Before I end it, this recording session has gone on for a while. Is Donald Trump streaming right now? What is that recommended channel? Is that... Oh, it's a fucking Trump. It's a Trump in Montana. It's just a Trump rally. I thought it was going to be a fucking... Like, Trump playing video games or some shit. I swear to God. I wonder if the assassination attempt was streamed on Twitch. If Trump's streaming all of his shit. That would be fucking wild. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. We have institutional despotism. The PRI is heir to the triumphs and tragedies of the Mexican Revolution. Beholden to its promises of land reform and workers' rights, the party has devoted more effort into preventing the chaos and bloodshed yet again. Or through Lazaro Cardenas' corporatist framework or national development, the PRI aims to ensure social peace and continued success for its vast electoral machine. All-powerful yet rigidly centralized, this Leviathan's course is to be set by the president's will. A person touching down a country such as this might look at these sort of trappings of little democracy it keeps around and conclude that the government is democratic, but they cannot be further from the truth. Far from pursuing democracy, institutional despotism aims to create and maintain a perfect dictatorship that successfully convinces people that they are not, in fact, in a dictatorship. As the new decade dawns, the most obvious case of this is the pre-rule in Mexico. In this state, institutions are controlled and subverted by a single, increasingly entrenched oligarchical party or other such groups occupying the political bureaucracy. Meanwhile, the government has dictatorial powers to enforce its will, powers enshrined in laws that give the state massive oversight and the faculties to intervene anywhere it pleases. Furthermore, even most of the organized opposition is likely directly controlled by, or a satellite of, the ruling party to give an illusion of political pluralism. Therefore, it is impossible to imagine their displacement from power without an immense broad front effort directed specifically towards that goal. Every action, inaction, use, and abuse is justified by a single unified goal, or purpose inseparably tied to the ruling group or ideology, no matter how vague or logically incoherent said goal may become. The result is a despotism institutionalized and camouflaged, and a national ideology and civil society forced to revolve around an abstract goal, absorbing everything that it touches, which is very frequently used to justify the self-interest of the political oligarchy that sits at its head. Very, very complicated stuff. From Revolution Crisis, you need to give Dick everything he wants. He's not a true... That statement's been verified by true American patriots. True. Well, we'll actually get into the political content in the next recording session. But, at least for the YouTube people, I'm going to have to leave it here. But thank you for watching, my friends. Like I said, if you like it, dislike if you didn't. Oh, we have... Of course, we have, cities and landmarks for here. It's just more shit we'll have to read. We'll get to it next time. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, my friends. Like if you liked it, dislike... Is there one for every fucking state? Okay, not every state. Interesting. Anyway. Thanks for watching, gang. Like this video if you liked, dislike if you didn't. If you dislike, leave any comments or feedback down in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get, and I appreciate any of you feedback my app for me. Check out my various links in the description box below. Leaving comments down in the comment section below. And check out my links, including the Twitch, which this was filmed live on, down in the description box below. Thanks for watching, gang. My name has been Mr. Doggo333. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.